Hello and welcome to the Fine Roots. My name is Tian, and today we're going to talk about desires. And just yesterday, I had a thought, and it kind of got me into a train of thought. And it's kind of like, as of this moment right now, why isn't it enough? Why is it that I have to get something in the future to be enough? And why isn't it that right now? Why isn't that enough? Why is it that I have to get something in order to be enough? And so today we're gonna kind of explore that field or that thought. And essentially all of this kind of stem from the Brazilian story of the fisherman and the businessman. And so it goes as follows. And so there was once a fisherman, and who he provided for his family by fishing every day. He enjoyed what he did, and that's what he did. Until one day a businessman came and saw this guy fishing. So he said, "You should have someone fish for you." And the fisherman said, "Why? Why is that?" And then the guy said, "Well, that way you don't have to fish yourself, and that way you can get more fish." It's like, and then what? And then when you have more fish, you can use the fish and you can sell that for money, and then you can buy more equipments and you can get more fish. And it says, and then what? Well, once you have more equipment, more fish, and more people that fish for you, and then they can fish even more fish, and that way you can use the money, you can buy a bigger boat, a bigger net, and then you can catch 100 times more fish than you do right now. And then what? And then gonna have so much money, you don't know what to do with it. And essentially you can just retire and do whatever you want to do. And the fisherman says, "Well, I'm doing that right now." So essentially it goes into that, if you're doing what you love right now, why is it that there has to be a point in the future for it to be complete? Why isn't it already complete? So in a sense that every day when we wake up, isn't that enough? Because essentially when you think about it, not making it means that we wouldn't be able to wake up. We wouldn't have a chance to do what we wanted to do. But if we manage to wake up, that means that we have another chance to do whatever we want to do. And so the point now becomes to have a desire, right? To have essentially something to strive for. And this now becomes two aspects that we got to cover. So everything has two sides. A coin has two sides, a mountain has two sides, everything has two sides. The moon has two sides, the sun has two sides. Everything has the yin and the yang, right? So now let's look at desire from a good, like on the brighter side. Why is it good to have a desire? Well, let's first understand to not have a desire is essentially to live every day, to just not have something to aim at. And then this kind of reminds me of playing soccer. When you just play soccer, you can play soccer without having a goal. You just pass the ball back and forth and you play with each other. And essentially that's the play. But to have a desire is essentially now becomes to win the game, to have a goal, to score, to have an objective, to score the ball through a net with some challenge, with someone there trying to catch the ball, right? So now it becomes a different type of game. It becomes more competitive. But the essence is still the same, like our basic needs has to be met in order for us to get there, because otherwise we would have to fight for our survival. But if we are at the point where our survival is met, now it becomes, what type of game do you want to play? So one type of the game of desire is not have a desire, it's just to play. And some could say to wake up and not have a goal. And this is going to be moving towards the Zen side, so more Buddha. Because Buddha said that having desire is a source of suffering. So to have something, to strive for something that we don't have, it's essentially, it limits our experience to just that. And so let's look at it in this perspective. And this kind of pulls onto the string of the red car theory, where it goes as follows. On our way to work, if we were to be asked how many red cars did we see that day, we can maybe say 1 or 2. But then let's say, are you sure that's how many cars you saw? I say, yeah, maybe 2, 3, 4. It's like, okay. Now, let's say the next day we say, for every red car you see, I'm going to pay you $1,000. Now, our senses has been tuned into just finding red cars. And throughout, on our way from start to finish, we're going to see all the red cars there is to be seen. And we will ensure it because of what comes with it. So having a desire follows that path, in a sense that having something that we strive for, everything we look for is going to be in that light, in that path. Because otherwise we wouldn't want to look for it. So having desire narrows our experience to just that. So in other words, looking only for the red cars will allow us to see the red cars. But the price that we have to pay is that we lose out on the blue car, the green car, the yellow car, the trees, the waves, the beach, the scenes, the people, everything in between. So that kind of follows the same path in a sense that, let's say we go on a road trip. If we focus on the destination, then we would have to go from point A to point B the fastest. And what is the point of that? Well, the point is to get to the destination, but is it worth trading off the road trip? So I feel like the balance between the two is where the sweet spot is at. Like, we have a destination to head towards, but if we forget that everything in between exists, then the journey becomes just like a straight line. So living in that sense, to have a desire is to have a destination to go towards. But if the destination we're heading towards is without awareness, then it becomes like it's just a blind goal, a blind destination. So let's say my desire is to go, let's use the States, for instance, as the goal, and that's the metaphor. All right, so I live in California. Let's say my destination, my desire is New York. I want to get to New York. And if I want to get to New York the fastest, I would have to find the most optimal path to get there. And I will just have to drive. And I won't have to drive not only the fastest, but most efficient. So I will try to drive, let's say 12 hours at most, and rest for 8 hours, eat, sleep, and then do it again. I do that for maybe 3-4 days, and I'll end up in New York. I got to my point, I got my desire, now I get there, now what? Okay, so that's 1. 2 is my desire is New York. I don't know how to get there, but I'm gonna find out. So I hop in a car, I drive, I ask some people, and they'll point me, okay, you have to head down this road. So I drive down that road, and I'll end up in a place where I don't know where I'm at. And things begins to happen because, well, I'm open to everything. So everything is going to be in my radar. Versus the other side is having a point A to point B. All I'm going to focus on is to get there the fastest I can. And everything that happens on the road, I don't care, because I want to get there. So if there was, let's say, a festival, or let's say there was like a cherry blossom festival, or some kind of festival on the way, there's a hiking spot on the way, there's a scenery on spot on the way, but I don't care about them because I just want to get to point A to point B. My goal is just to get to New York. So I drive past all of that. I don't care. All the opportunities, all the possibilities, I'm closed off. But on the other end, if my goal was New York and I wanted to get there, and so heading there, I don't know how to get there, but I just know that I want to get there. And so the entire point A to point B becomes a journey. So imagine watching a movie. If you want to know how the movie ends, does it make sense to watch it from beginning and then we skip everything in between and just watch the ending? Finish the movie, but everything in between, it now becomes pointless. That's not the point. And then it becomes meaningless. Imagine watching all the movies there is to exist. Just watch the first 10 seconds and watch the last 10 seconds. And then there's nothing to experience, because it's like, well, you got the beginning, you got the ending, but it's all about the journey that brings the meaning. Right? So if life was about point A and point B, well, we all know what the quickest way out is, but that is not the way that life was intended to be. Right? So it is the journey that becomes the meaning of it. And the desire is essentially the goal throughout life. To kind of like, let's say, a tree that grows up, and then the goal becomes the branches that reaches out to certain directions. And over time, all the goals now become, it molds and form into the tree that it becomes. And so having purposeful goals is essentially having a direction that is headed towards with an intention. Because having no intention has its own consequences. I mean, everything has its reaction, you could say. So heading towards life without a goal leaves everything to be interpreted and open and to be received. But let's say I'm in a space where I don't want to receive anything, but yet I don't have a goal. So I'm like stuck in a limbo. Like I'm open to everything, but I don't want to receive anything. Like let's say there's a waterfall right in front of me, but I'm hiding my cup. I'm covering my cup. I'm blocking everything that wants to get in. So it comes all back down into the sense that having a desire will have its own reactions, will have its own consequences. So having a desire with an intention, it's like, I want this. But when you get it, when you get something you never had, that in itself is an experience. So let's say I want to one day eat a strawberry, for instance. Right? I could dream of a strawberry, I could wish to eat a strawberry, I could do whatever I want, but one day I want to eat a strawberry. But I never tried it, right? So I dream and desire to eat a strawberry. And then that day comes, I eat the strawberry, and it turns out I'm allergic. So I get what I wanted, and it turns out to not be what I wanted. Like, the experience wasn't what I expected it to be. And in the same way, it goes with, let's say I want a 1500,000 cc bike. The average bike is about 100, but this is 15 times stronger and faster and more powerful. And if I never rode a bike before, but I saw this magnificent bike it looks so beautiful and it's so powerful that I want to, one day I want to ride this bike. And I never rode a bike before. So I get on the bike. The moment I begin to gas the thing, all of a sudden my spine flies away. I wasn't ready to maneuver this thing. It's so powerful. So again, having desire is not the issue. Having desire, I feel like it becomes a part of the human nature to experience things. We want to experience things that whatever we wish for, desire for, it is a journey that it becomes. But then the awareness now becomes having those desire is a natural thing. But be aware that when we embark on those journeys, it has its own consequences, like getting something that we didn't expect. The experience turned out to be something that we didn't want. And that's all a part of it. So that's one side of chasing our desires, and the other leaving it open. So my approach is more on the open end, like having a desire, but knowing that it will take time for it to come and to flourish. My approach is more so in a sense that leave things to be open and not be so fixated on it, because otherwise I will block out everything there is to experience, kind of like the road trip. I know that I want to get to New York, but the point is not to get to New York. That is the direction I want to go, because I want to experience everything that is from here to New York. So everything in between now becomes the journey. I want to leave it open and just wonder and be mysterious about life and kind of take it each day by day and not rush it, because we're all going to die one day. What matters does it make to rush through life? And why is it to be rushed? What's the rush? I mean, we all know where we're gonna end. So we know the ending of the movie. Now we don't know the ending of the movie, how it's going to end, but we know that it will end at some point. So now it becomes the journey, the movie, what's going to unfold. And my approach is more so in that light, to leave it open, to let the movie unfold itself in a way, and not rush through the movie, not watch the whole thing sped up. Because imagine watching a main character go from point A to point B. Like you see like the main character being a baby, and all of a sudden you see the main character being old, and he dies. And now you wonder, what the hell happened in between? Like that's it? That's going to be the worst movie to ever watch. But if the whole thing became a journey, now it becomes interesting. Now it becomes like, how did his life unfold? What happened in his life, or in this person's life? What did they go through? What happened? Why is that mark here? And now it becomes interesting. So that's the kind of approach that I've concluded to approach, to leave all the lanes open, to throw away the GPS. I just know my direction is over there somewhere, and I'll head there, and whatever happens on the way is what happens. And that kind of brings the wonder into life again. Because if I wake up and my objective is to just produce, let's say, this podcast, and I'll do that, and then I'll just, every day I get into this routine where I wake up, produce, and then that takes away the wonder of life. Like, it takes away my ability to just wander through life sometimes. So let's say I sit at a coffee shop, and my number one objective is to write and produce, and that leaves everything else out of the window. Let's say something happened at a coffee shop, and then if I were there open, I could observe it and watch it. That would bring in like a new idea or new light that I wasn't aware of. And every day becomes almost like an interesting day, because it's like I didn't expect these things and I'm able to see these things. But if I was so focused on my desires and objective, I would lose out on those things. For instance, just sitting in this room and just hearing the wind outside the window, it's an experience in itself. Because it's so, usually this room is filled with noise and, the everyday shenanigans. But then if you just stop and pause, like this moment right now, it's really windy outside today. And there's many days where there's been windy, but to pause and look at it, and then just to see the trees move in a way and listen to the quietness that is present, and just look at things the way they are and wonder there's a history between everything that is in here. The way that the cap lays upside down, the way that the room it looks right now, it looks kind of chaotic, but it's like it has a story behind it. And that's what, when approaching life in a sense of leaving it open, allows these stories to be told or to be observed and absorbed. Otherwise, if I was so fixated on producing this podcast, I wouldn't be able to see these things because it wouldn't matter, right? So just bringing this into the light, and I figured I'd share that. And whichever way you approach life, it's our movies to be experienced. It's our movie to be told. It's our movie to unfold, right? So there's no right or wrong. It's whichever way you prefer. And this is just one movie. The world has a billion different movies, and whichever way you prefer, that's the way it is. And I wish you the best, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.